Hey Internet, it's me. As you saw by the title of this video, I'm going to review another movie because the way the world seems to work is once Halloween is done, like as soon as the trick-or-treaters go inside for the night, it's Christmas. Just immediately. So, I'm going to review a Christmas movie. But before I get into it, I just want full disclosure, I am absolutely biased here. A lot of the cast and crew are people I've worked with or are good friends of mine. In fact, there's even one scene in this movie where a very sexy police dispatch can be heard.
Thank you for calling Crime Watch Tip Line. What do you have to report?
And I still want to give this a proper review. I want to be fair. If there's negative things to say, I'm going to say them. But there will be a bias. So, just putting that out there. But anyway, let's talk about Silent Bite. This is... let me back up. I think I'm going to start with complaints. One thing this movie did, by the way, spoilers for this movie and any other movie that I mentioned, just to cover all my bases. Right off the bat, this does something very similar to a horror movie that came out earlier this year, Abigail, where it sets itself up as like a heist movie or like a crime type thing. You know, in Abigail, you're following these group of people that kidnap a girl who you later find out has, you know, an important father, and they're wondering, oh, is he like some mafioso? Is he a drug lord? Is he a killer? Like, what's the deal? What do we have to do? Blah, blah, blah. Similarly, this movie sees people robbing a bank and going on the run and trying to hide out from the police. The problem is, in Abigail, right in the trailers, they showed you that the girl they kidnapped is actually a vampire. So you know what's going to unfold in the movie. There's no surprise, there's no twist. And it just ruins what could have otherwise been a really fun second act reveal. This movie kind of does the same thing. As soon as the bank robbers get to the hotel where they're hiding out, you find out pretty quickly that there's a coven of vampires also staying at the hotel. And I would have liked if they went more in depth with the bank robbers first, you know, because later on in the movie you get them doing a lot of infighting, you get them doing some recon around the hotel, you know, there's a lot of back and forth, they talk about the plan and how it's going to unfold. I wish all of that could have happened first, before the reveal. At one point they decide, hey, go check the computer, there's other guests in the hotel, see what room they're in. And then the kid, he does that, he goes in the room and then he discovers, oh, there's like an altar and demonic crap in here, like something's going on. They're not cops, but something's up. I feel like that should have been the point where we get the reveal about them being vampires. If they could have waited until that point to let the audience know, it would have been a much better twist, because suddenly there'd be this huge unexpected tonal shift and it would keep people on their toes. From that point going forward, they wouldn't know what to expect. You know, is it still about the heist? Are we still worried about cops? Or is it the vampires that are the threat now? Are we rooting for the bank robbers who originally were the bad guys? Or are we rooting for the vampires? Are we rooting for no one? There's a lot of questions would come up if you did the reveal that way. And I just feel like it would drive engagement more for the second and third acts. That's not to say there isn't engagement. The characters are interesting and they're well acted, like no one's getting an Oscar, but they all did a very good job. I didn't feel like much of the acting was flat. Also, I did not peel the sticker off of this, so I guess I'm just going to do that now. But no, I felt like a lot of the delivery was good, a lot of the back and forth, you know, some of the banter was really fun. There were a couple lines that maybe could have been tweaked or improved, but overall, you know, it was done well. I believed the characters. I was still engaged and interested in the story and seeing what happens. At least for the bank robbers. Maybe less so for the vampires. Nothing happened with the daughters to really set them apart from one another. Right in the beginning, you see one is a bit rebellious, but that doesn't really come up again, and the other two don't really differentiate from each other at all. So they didn't do much to make me care about them so much, other than say, hey, these are vampires. It would have been nice if we got a little more character. Like, I don't need the backstory of each one. I don't know. I don't need to know when they turned and what their life was like before any of that. In fact, I like that the mother even says, when you learn to walk, you forget about the times when you can only crawl. So I think that's actually a great line to explain why we don't get or need the backstory. But it would have been nice if they could have had more individualistic character. So they could have been fleshed out a little more. Fat Tony never made a return the second night. It would have been interesting if he came in after all the carnage. In the end, Fat Santa Vampire is the one that, sees the host from the hotel, the concierge rather, and, accosts him and takes the money. It would have been funnier if that was Fat Tony. Like, if he showed up early and just happened to stumble into him as he was walking out with this giant brick of money. That would have been a fun twist and a good return for the character. Because otherwise, the character was introduced and set up, and then they just went nowhere with him. He disappeared. And I should stop at the moment and say, I know, like, I've just mentioned a bunch of things, and it feels like I'm being overly critical or, like, negative about this. But I don't want that to come across as, like, this is a bad movie. Because it absolutely is not. None of those things are major things. The plot itself as a whole is good. It's a good story, maybe a bit cliche, but what movie isn't? It's definitely engaging. Like I said, the acting is good. You get invested. Everything is shot beautifully, but my buddy Tim Davis, who was here for some of the horror stuff, he shot and edited the movie, so it was always going to look good. It is well done. It is a good movie. If you want a Christmas horror or just a new vampire movie to watch, this is one that I could genuinely recommend and say is good, regardless of the fact that I'm in it. I just don't think it's a perfect movie. I think very few movies are. Aside from Spirited Away and maybe Princess Bride, I don't know anything that I could say is without flaws. So, every movie has some points of critique. This one is no exception, and it would be unfair for me to not critique it at all. But I do want to reiterate that it is a well-done movie. The director of this film, a friend of mine, this is her first feature that she's directed. She was not the writer. Someone else wrote the script and handed it to her. She just directed it. But she directed it well. Everyone was believable in their roles. Their delivery was good. Like I said, I was engaged. I was drawn into the story. I wanted to see what happened. I watched the whole thing. Like I said, the cinematography, of course, is amazing. Everything looks incredible. There's no major negatives, I guess is my point. Like, I did have a few nitpicks there, but none of it takes away from the movie as a whole. They would maybe move it from like a 7 to an 8, but it's still an above average, good, watchable movie. It's still one that I could recommend and did enjoy. I guess that's my point. If you want Christmas horror, vampire, I don't know if I'd call this indie. I think it's indie. I don't know if any of these studios are big enough for it to not be indie. Obviously, it did get distribution. It's available on Amazon. You can download it on Prime. You can get the Blu-ray, and you should. I think it's still indie. But it's still one I could recommend. It's worth a watch. It's one you should check out. And I think that's where I'm going to end with this. I know it was a bit rambly, and I was trying not to be. I didn't want it to just be autofellatio for 10 minutes here on YouTube. I wanted it to sound fair. I wanted to give actual critiques of things that could have been better, that I would have done better if I were in charge, and that is by no means saying I should have been in charge, that the people who were did a bad job. I don't know. It was good. It is. It's a good movie. I enjoy it. You will too. Go check it out. I'm going to stop rambling now. So,